Hey guys, this is a non-sarcastic, serious vlog. I'm here in the Museum of Science and Industry, so I just figured I'd share with you one of the the most interesting stories to come out of World War II in terms of the Navy. This is U-505, one of the last, I'm not sure if it is the last, but one of the last ships to be boarded by another ship and captured. So the story was U-505 was attacking a convoy, and it was forced to surface when it got hit, when they fired a bunch of depth charges. Now, unlike what normally happens, I think all it did was damage the rudder, but the ship had to surface so they could abandon it and hopefully not drown. So the Germans pulled the cap, I forget what it's called, but they tried to scuttle it, so they pulled the cap. So it started to fill with water. They also planted demolition charges and timed them. So the Americans figured this was a great opportunity. They could capture a fully intact, well, I guess it had some damage, but they could capture an intact U-boat. They could look at all the documents on it. They could look at all the technology. They could get the radio. Lots of kind of cool stuff. So they sent over a boarding party, and the boarding party kind of heroically recapped the pipe that was draining it, and they disabled the time bomb. So here's a dramatization, and it's just kind of a really interesting story and kind of unique. So that's what kind of a U-boat's deck would historically look like. You have anti-aircraft guns, etc. What I think a lot of people don't realize is most of the time submarines cruise on the surface because they can go a lot faster, and more importantly, they can vent carbon dioxide. They can't use, really, from my understanding, oil engines underwater because oil engines produce carbon dioxide and it kills the crew. So U-boats have batteries that let them go underwater, and the batteries charge while they're on the surface. So really, they only go under when they only would go under when they were about to attack. So they were cruising on the surface most of the time. They also had a snorkel, I think, which allowed them to be somewhat submerged. But as you can see, I think a lot of people don't realize this, U-boats had anti-aircraft guns. Why exactly, I'm not sure. I guess to shoot at bombers, but I doubt they would really do that much good. But kind of what's more interesting is the deck gun. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but U-boats, particularly in World War I, contained a single or a couple rapid-fire cannons. And in World War I, at least, it was the main weapon. I think the number one U-boat ace in World War I stated that the main weapon of a U-boat was not actually a torpedo, because they could only carry a couple torpedoes, but the deck gun. So what they would often do is they would submerge and then go up and resurface next to the boat in question, and they just fire away at point blank in its side with the deck gun and blow a big hole in its side and then resubmerge and go away. Because you can carry a lot more shells for a autocannon than you can for torpedoes. Eventually they came up with ways to counter this, and it was just too dangerous. Torpedoes also became better, and they could just carry more of them. So the deck gun kind of fell out of use. Another interesting thing is during World War I, the British caught on to this, and they designed the Q-boat. The Q-boat was designed to look like a small merchant ship or a fishing vessel, or just the kind of thing that normally the Germans wouldn't waste a torpedo on. So they'd surface alongside this boat, but the Q-boat would have all kinds of hidden autocannons and other powerful close-range weapons, and just blast away at the U-boat. Whether or not the Q-boat has anything to do with Q, because it's kind of a gadget boat, I'm not sure. I know Q stands for quartermaster, but it would be interesting. So yeah, this is U-505. Pretty impressive. German engineering at its finest. The U-boats were initially very effective throughout the war, but over time depth charges got better. Just in general, The Allied technology improved faster than the German did. Interestingly, I think the most effective weapon they designed in the war was blimps with depth charges. Not a single one, I think, was ever shot down, nor was a single ship lost in a convoy, because blimps are slow-moving, they can stay in the air a long time. If a U-boat wanted to take one down, they'd have to surface and ineffectually fire with those tiny anti-aircraft guns at it. But, yeah, that's the U-boat. The only other power in World War II who really used submarines to any great effect was America, ironically enough. They had a very large submarine fleet, although it was almost entirely deployed against Japan. But no, I've been inside this one before. I won't go in this time, but it's insane how cramped those people were. The Germans had very high standards. I think they had similar standards to the SS as who could serve on U-boats, and it was volunteers only, just because of how grueling it was. But yeah, I hope that was kind of interesting and informative, and I'll talk to you guys later.